Please join me in re-welcoming Adam Pennington.
And thank you to Katie for giving me a second to switch gears there. So I just know this is unfortunate for our online audience, but if I get a quick show of hands for how many of you are operationally using PreATTCK today? It's 2? Okay. So I was actually a little curious how that would go. So one of the things that we told all of our speakers this week was not to introduce ATT&CK. And we actually really appreciate that people have been pretty good about that between both the external speakers and the ATT&CK updates people have been doing. But we know that not everyone has actually worked with PreATTCK in the past, so wanted to actually start there. So most of what we've been saying when we mean ATT&CK this week is enterprise attack. ATT&CK was originally created to look at behaviors that adversaries do after they've broken into an environment. A separate team a couple years after that went to look at some of the adversaries' threat intelligence cycle and look at techniques for what adversaries would do before they broke into a system. So this is the graphic we've used for years where we're breaking up the kill chain into pre-attack and enterprise attack. So just about a year ago, we had an effort to take the launch and compromise tactics from PreATTCK, cannibalize them, and create the initial access tactic. So this wasn't the same techniques, but it did represent the same coverage, the same space. And so we started the process of integrating PreATTCK into ATT&CK. So if you remember back to Blake's original beginning, he talked about the idea of bringing some of the different attack efforts together and just making it all one big happy attack. And so rather than just go along and continue to take a tactic or two at a time, our plan is to rip the Band-Aid off and make PreATTCK and ATT&CK all into one piece. So this is the picture I started with, and this is the picture we've been briefing for years, but it's not really quite accurate. So really where this space looks like is a little bit more like this. So PreATTCK covers a space that actually comes before the kill chain, that's off into the adversary's intelligence planning cycles, some of the budgeting and resource management issues. And so it's a bit left of the kill chain. So in looking at how we actually want to take stuff from techniques and from PreATTCK and looking at some of that space off into just intel, we had to sit down and take a look at how do we decide what we pull in and what we don't. So a member of our team, Ingrid Parker, actually spent some time taking a look at this, where she went down and worked with us and came up with a couple of different things in how to decide what goes in. So the first of all is that it's technical. So it has something to do with electronics, computers. It isn't just a planning exercise. It's visible to some defenders. So the PreATTCK space is different. So with ATT&CK, we're mostly talking about behaviors in your environment that if you did the exact right things, you probably could see. You might not want to alert on them, but they're in space that you control and have visibility into. The PreATTCK space is a little bit different. So what we mean by some defenders is that maybe an ISP could see it, a DNS provider. Somebody up the chain actually has visibility into it somewhere. Evidence of adversary use. So when PreATTCK was originally written, there really was not much out there talking about things that happened before intrusions. So one of the things that's helped the last couple of years is things like indictments. There have been a number of reports out and other threat intelligence companies as well that have talked a lot more about adversary preparation of getting ready for going into intrusion. So I haven't actually shown PreATTCK Matrix yet, but so if you haven't seen PreATTCK before, it actually looks somewhat like ATT&CK. It's got tactics across the top, techniques down the side. And so this yellow here is that sort of intelligence space. These are things like priority definition planning, thinking about getting ready for an intrusion. And so we think that those don't really fall into the 3 standards I just set down. So looking across the rest of it, we realized that it actually divides up pretty nicely into 2 different sections. So we've got the red, the green, and the blue. So we've got this intelligence planning that we're calling at a scope, reconnaissance, which we'd be making into a new tactic in enterprise attack, and resource development. And so to give you an idea what these look like. So I couldn't put the word draft on here many more times and still have this slide render well. So I want to make sure that shows up in the background of your screenshots. These are absolutely not the final technique names. They will change, not they might change. But so reconnaissance is very focused on the victim. So it's focused on gathering information on the victim itself, gathering information on individuals within the victim, and sort of what everything around the victim's landscape looks like. We also have resource development. So resource development has 2 main types of information on it. We have infrastructure and capabilities. So those of you who know threat models that aren't attack, victim, infrastructure, and capabilities might start sounding a little bit familiar. And it's not completely an accident. And so resource development is the adversary actually building up the pieces that they need in order to do their intrusion. So building up like SSL certificates they need, getting a hold of any servers they want. We're going to be doing both where they are actually building it themselves as different from where they're acquiring it through other mechanisms where it's already built. But so this is the rough shape of what we think pre-attack is going to look like. So you might notice that this doesn't really look like current attack techniques. These are sub-techniques. And so this is not something that we're going to see in the next few weeks. This isn't, a couple of people have complained today that we did a release in, last Thursday, right before ATT&CKcon. People had to change up their slides. This is actually going to be a little bit longer coming. We still have some whiteboard sessions. And I should say that the techniques you're actually, and sub-techniques you're actually seeing here today are a process of a number of whiteboarding sessions between Katie Nichols and myself.
Please join me in thanking Adam Pennington.